Francisco Franco was born on December 4, 1892, in Ferrol, a naval town in Galicia, Spain, into a modest middle-class family with strong military traditions. His father, Nicolas Franco, was a naval officer, but often absent, both physically and emotionally, due to his strained relationship with Franco's pious and conservative mother, Pilar Bohemond. From a young age, Franco was drawn to discipline, order, and hierarchy, traits that would define his entire life. His ambition was to follow the naval tradition of his family, but when the Spanish Naval Academy temporarily closed due to budget cuts, he instead joined the army at the age of 14, enrolling at the Infantry Academy of Toledo. Short, quiet, and introverted, Franco was not the most socially dominant student, but he was relentless, disciplined, and committed. At just 17, he was sent to Morocco as part of Spain's brutal colonial campaigns, where he earned a reputation for toughness and tactical precision. Wounded in combat and rising quickly through the ranks, Franco became one of the youngest generals in Europe by age 33. He married Carmen Polo in 1923, a deeply religious woman whose devout Catholicism would further anchor Franco's own authoritarian vision of Spanish identity. As Spain spiraled into political chaos during the 1920s and 30s, swinging between monarchy, dictatorship, republic, and revolution, Franco remained loyal to the military and monarchist conservative ideals. He played a key role in suppressing leftist uprisings during the Second Republic and became increasingly disturbed by the rise of socialism, communism, and secularism in Spanish politics. In 1936, following the electoral victory of the left-wing Popular Front, Franco joined a military conspiracy to overthrow the republic. The failed coup turned into a devastating civil war. As the nationalist leader, Franco imposed strict military discipline on his forces and skillfully centralized power under his own command. With military support from Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, he bombarded Republican-held cities, crushed dissent, and slowly turned the tide of the war. The Spanish Civil War, 1936 to 1939, left the country shattered, with over 500,000 dead and millions displaced. When Madrid fell in 1939, Franco declared victory and established a fascist-style dictatorship, naming himself Caudillo, leader of Spain. Unlike Hitler or Mussolini, Franco's regime was rooted in Catholic traditionalism, military nationalism, and a vision of Spain as eternal, indivisible, and conservative to its core. He outlawed political parties, trade unions, and dissent, imprisoning or executing thousands of former Republicans, intellectuals, and opposition voices in what became known as the White Terror. Franco aligned ideologically with Axis powers but stayed officially neutral during World War II, a move that spared Spain from Allied invasion and post-war punishment. However, his regime was isolated for years afterward, seen as a relic of fascism in a changing world. In the 1950s, Spain began to open economically, signing a pact with the United States that allowed military bases in exchange for aid. This shift marked the beginning of Spain's slow reintegration into the Western Bloc. Franco remained unchallenged politically, ruling with absolute power, censoring the press, banning regional languages like Catalan and Basque, and using the Guardia Civil to monitor and repress any form of dissent. Yet despite the authoritarianism, Spain underwent an economic transformation during the 1960s, the so-called Spanish Miracle, as tourism boomed, foreign investment arrived, and industrialization expanded. Franco portrayed himself as the guardian of Spanish identity, Catholic virtue, and stability, offering order in exchange for freedom. But underneath the surface, discontent simmered, especially among younger generations and in restive regions like Catalonia and the Basque Country. Franco was deeply resistant to political reform. Even as he aged into his 70s, his grip on power remained ironclad. In 1969, with no heir and monarchy long abolished, Franco shocked the world by naming Prince Juan Carlos, the grandson of Spain's last king, as his official successor, skipping over Juan Carlos's father, Don Juan, a known liberal. Franco's choice was strategic. Juan Carlos was raised under Francoist values, and the Caudillo believed he would preserve authoritarian rule. As Franco grew frail in the early 1970s, his regime faced growing opposition from students, workers, and even within the church. Yet Franco resisted change until the very end. He remained a symbol of order to his supporters and a symbol of repression to his enemies. In 1973, Franco's loyal prime minister, Admiral Luis Carrero Blanco, was assassinated by ETA, the Basque separatist group, in a spectacular car bombing that shocked the nation and weakened the regime's inner circle. Franco, then already in declining health, tried to maintain control, but the end was near. In 1975, he fell seriously ill, suffering from Parkinson's and complications from various conditions. He lingered for weeks, kept alive by artificial means while the nation waited. Finally, on November 20, 1975, Francisco Franco died at the age of 82. His death marked the end of Spain's last dictatorship. Juan Carlos assumed the throne and, to the surprise of many, began dismantling the authoritarian system Franco had spent nearly 40 years building. Within a few years, Spain transitioned to democracy, legalized political parties, and embraced a new constitution in 1978. Franco's body was buried with state honors in the Valley of the Fallen, a massive monument he had constructed as a symbol of nationalist victory. But his legacy remained, and still remains, bitterly divisive. To his supporters, Franco saved Spain from communism and preserved its unity. To others, he was a tyrant who crushed liberty, silenced generations, and delayed democracy by decades. His shadow still lingers in Spanish politics, culture, and memory. Streets and monuments bearing his name have been removed in recent years, and his remains were exhumed in 2019 from the Valley of the Fallen, ending a chapter of enforced silence. Francisco Franco was not simply a dictator. He was the architect of an authoritarian regime that outlasted Hitler and Mussolini, a man who blended Catholic conservatism with fascist methods, a general who turned military victory into personal rule, and a ruler whose death marked both the end of an era and the beginning of Spain's rebirth.